1 o'clock appointment for the budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on page 2 of the second part of the agenda is the RFD for the interim operating capital budgets. So I'd like to kind of go through the same process. So review the operating budget first, then the capital budget second. So there was a little bit of discussion last time on just some certain topics which were mainly around fire and water. So there weren't many changes on the operating budget. So what we did in the operating budget, we updated the actuals up to October 17th, just to give council a little bit of better indication of the year spending to date. So based on that, we did update a couple numbers, so some printing and binding, some insurance numbers, and then we also increased our safety supplies budget. Were there any questions on any of those changes that we had made? And that would be on page page 7 of 243 on the operating document.
Page 7, volume 2. Any questions from council?
Okay, if there's no further questions on the operating, perhaps we can move on to the capital, if that's okay. If there is any questions on the operating, feel free to also bring them up.
Capital starts on page 85.
Yes. So on the capital budget, still same concepts. There were a couple minor changes. I forgot to put the summary page on the front. One project that was added in was which was a bridge file, and the only way we will do this bridge file is if we do receive provincial funding from that. So if we don't receive the funding, then the project won't go through.
Any questions?
I'll move we accept the report. Excuse me.
Ben has moved that we accept the report. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
So if there is any direction that council do wish to provide, then administration will make the changes. If not, what we're hopeful for is to bring back the 4th and final interim budget for interim approval. And then what we do as well is that we'll bring back a final copy of the 2019 budget, and we'll bring that back in about April of 2019. And the reason why we do that is that we bring that back so we can update all of our requisitions. So at this point, we make estimates on various requisitions, so the provincial education requisition, which is the biggest expense for the county. And then we update those as the actuals, then we can adjust our taxation revenue based on that.
What date do you anticipate the 4th draft?
I would say the start of April, whichever council meeting that is, maybe the 3rd.
Okay.
And we tend to present that in conjunction with the audited financial statement as well for 2018, just kind of the way it works, the timing.
So question to Alan, adopting this as information, do you want that or do you want an actual approval for this interim budget?
Administration is okay either way, but if council is good with it, there's no changes to be made, you can accept it as the approved interim budget, and then we don't need to bring it back on December 4th, but we certainly are still open for any comments further to that.
Where is council at? Tom?
I've just got one. I'm just going to go back on wastewater into, just looking at Rosebud, page 107, expenditures, and it's that the septic tank cleaning thing. should there not be, on the revenue side, should there not, that number should not be the same? Because we're going to be charging them, right? I'm just wondering if just, you know, like,
Cost recovery on it.
yeah, cost recovery, and I'm just not sure how that works there, just.
Yes, so through Madam Chair, so what we typically do here is that we're transferring all that funding from a reserve. So the reserves at this point, if you take a look at the top of page 107, there's a revenue that says transfer from reserve, and we have budgeted 230,000. So all of these projects are kind of Hamlet specific. So what we'll end up doing is we'll just take those out of those reserves set aside for those hamlets. So kind of the key to this is that the the capital revenue on page 107, so 230, it must equal the expenditure on the bottom of page 108. So at that point, once the projects come out of those specific hamlets, the capital revenue that we collect monthly from the ratepayers, and it's put aside for this specific use.
Any other questions or discussion? And I'd like some discussion around whether we would like to see another draft of the interim, or if we're ready to approve it today.
I'll make the motion that we approve it today as the interim budget.
Margaret? I just wasn't sure if that was an actual approval. Or did you want to actually approve the interim today with your motion? That wasn't how I interpreted it.
He made the motion.
Well, it just keeps the package smaller next time.
He made the motion. That's what I was voting on. He made.
Right, to accept it as information. And then I'm just asking if we would like to actually approve it today, or if anybody has any questions, or if they need, anything else needs to be changed and we need to see another draft. Okay, so Councillor Wilson has a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All in? With the two motions?
No, I understand everything.
Okay,
I do. Honestly, I do what Council.
perfect. All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Approved or passed? Carried. Did you vote, Jason? Yes, I did. Okay. All right, perfect.
Look at, I just saved you some time. Don't have to wear your tie in December.
We appreciate all of the work that has been done on both the budgets. Thank you. Okay, can I have a motion to go in camera, please? Tom? So can I have a motion to come out of camera, please? All in favor? So unless administration would like to go differently, we'll go to the CAO report. Jason moved. So we'll go to 4.2A.
Madam Chairman, my report is in front of council. I do not have anything to add. Just to point out that I do plan on taking some vacation December 14th, January 6th inclusive, and Mr. Michael Zier will be in charge during my absence. That's all I have in my report.
Any questions?
ICMA was held in Baltimore this year. That's the International County Managers Association.
Any other questions? A motion to accept the CAO report. Glenn? All in favor? Carried. We have an RFD for an update on the composting facility.
Madam Chairman, I think the report just speaks for itself. It's a response from Alberta Environment and Parks, in regards to the questions that I sent out some time ago for that. I don't know if there's any questions. I may not be able to answer all the stuff. We do have a meeting with Alberta Environment and Parks and Green for Life, operator of the compost facility in the Southwest 72524 next week, so I'll be able to update council following that as well. And I have been keeping the public members from NAP involved and updating on that. So,
Are there any questions about this update?
Thanks for letting them know, Alan. Also, the other report that we just got from James through email, will that be going to them as well? Is that?
Madam
the
Chairman,
FOIP?
they have received that report.
FOIP,
I sent
okay.
it to council first and sent it to them about 5 minutes later. I've been sending it to Ms. Harwood.
Thank you very much.
I'll move staff's recommendation for the composting report.
So Jason's moved that we accept this report as information. All in favor? And the correspondence. We have an update on the composting facility, legal recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So the recommendation is in front of you. I did talk to a number of different companies. One company in particular, and Mr. Keith Wilson and Wilson Legal was the preferred candidate. Unfortunately, they're not available till mid-2019. I received that name from one of the members of the NAP group. This name came forward from Councillor Clausen and through Paul McLaughlin from the RMA. I've talked to this individual and his some of his information is attached in regards to what the company can do. It's an international legal firm, and I do feel that they do have the capability to take this on. So they're my second choice, and the choice that I'm recommending would be Gowling WLG.
Any questions?
Thank you, Alan, for getting this together. No questions, just like to comment. It's about time we take it to him, so.
Scott?
How much difference is your number one and number two choice? Is there a drastic difference? With I'm just thinking mid-2019 isn't that far away.
Quite drastic difference, and I would say that because Mr. Wilson, when I talked to him, give me a list of 3 other legal firms to talk to. He gave me a list of different things that we should look at, and all pro bono. So I felt there was a lot of credibility there. Mr. Jansen, when I talked to him, he was a little bit harder to get a hold of. He was very forthcoming as well. So I would be a lot more comfortable with Mr. Wilson as a legal firm. But I think this firm can certainly handle it as well. They have international experience with other instances with compost facilities throughout the world. The individual that's in here deals more with oil and gas, as you probably noticed with his bio, whereas the other fellow deals more with, on both sides with environmental. So I don't know if that answers your question. So.
And yeah, it does. I like the environmental side better. The oil and gas is, I just hear dollar signs when I hear that, to be honest. And this other fellow, is he local? Like,
He's out an Alberta firm,
Okay.
actually based in Edmonton, but I believe his office, the individual I talked to, is in Calgary.
okay.
So the firm, the second firm, the one that can't do engage until mid-2019 is Wilson Law Offices. So
Council feel they're prepared to make a decision? Do we feel, we always have the option too, if we want to table it, if you feel like you might want to get more consultation?
So just further to that, Wilson Law Offices head office, or their office is in St. Albert, Alberta. So most of the stuff can be done remotely, but if they came to council to speak, obviously there would be an extra cost to travel, but it may be well worth it to get the right firm. So I just didn't know if council felt comfortable with waiting until this other case got cleared up. That's my only concern, so.
Did you get an indication he does like only just one case at a time, or?
He's a smaller firm, so he does have some limitations, but he does have a couple cases on the go that I understand. One in particular that he needs to wrap up by the first quarter of 2019, so.
I'm torn here because I really want someone that has an environmental background, and definitely an Alberta-based company would be preferred. Necessarily having somebody that's on the ground right at tomorrow, so to speak, I don't think is going to happen either way. Gotta think about this for a minute.
Glenn?
Any merit? We just got this report. I don't know when. We give them time, say a couple months, see if anything happens with it, if there's any movement, and then that would wait for this other lawyer to be more available. Or if we jump on it right away, then there's no, I don't know if the province is going to make them act on any of these recommendations, because some said it was recommendation and others were code of practice. And vague, to say the most in some of it. I would be comfortable waiting, just if we can get the other guy in by mid-spring or early summer.
Alan?
Madam Chairman, if council so chooses, I can bring back the report December 4th with the information on the other Mr. Wilson's firm. And by then, we'll have met with Alberta Environment and Parks and GFL, the meeting next week. And I'll certainly give council an update as soon as I get information on that. And maybe that would help council have more information in regards to that. So.
Thanks, Alan. Also, if you could get a firm date from Wilson as to what, even some preliminary work to get the ball rolling, so to speak. If we could push that date up a little bit better, I'd feel much better about that. I really think that would be the person that we would need to do that, so. And I'd hate to go down a road that doesn't give us any results.
Was that a motion, Glenn? Or do you want to, or Scott, do you want to make a motion to that effect, or? Or do you need a motion, Alan?
CAO reports next month.
Madam Chair, there is a motion put forward. So if council would prefer to defer that to December 4th for more information, I think that's what I'm hearing. Yeah. I'm fine with that.
Do you want a motion to table it? To defer? Do you want to make that, Scott?
I'll make the motion to defer this to the December 4th meeting, to get some firm dates from, I'll just say lawyer Wilson. I don't have any other information. And to see what is resolved from Alberta Environment and Parks review. Does that sound fair? Discussion? Yes.
Or for a decision at that time? Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. We'll move on to corporate and financial services report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So on the second file, page 244 is the corporate and financial services report. I don't have too much to add. One positive thing to note is that we did receive a backlog of our federal gas tax funding. So we received about $1.3 million from the federal government during the month of October. So that was kind of 3 years, so 16, 17, and 18.
I have a question. I noticed you were talking about delivery of a new backup server. Does the county do any kind of off-site backup in case there was some kind of physical event here that could damage like the on-site redundancy?
Yes, so it's not actually off-site, so we have a backup stored at our Public Works building. So if there was something to happen to the administration building, the backup stored at our Public Works building and vice versa, but not specifically off-site.
And have you considered some kind of online or cloud storage? I'm thinking for emergency planning.
It certainly is always a consideration. We haven't ran into a situation where either building has been compromised, but it is certainly something to consider. Administration could explore the cost of that and provide those back to council on December 4th.
If we could have an RFD come back, I'm just thinking in terms of emergency planning, but if you look at something like the wildfires, if that had come, you know, something like that, or
And there certainly are other municipal districts within Alberta that do have reciprocal agreements with other municipalities. So one MD would store another MD's data and vice versa. So it certainly is within the realm of possibility.
council's thoughts. Do you need a motion for an RFD, Alan? Or would you like one? No?
No, I can just bring that information back.
I just had one other question about the perk. Can you just speak to, so I noticed the uncollectible amount is $459,000 and that our request is $90,000. Can you just explain that a little bit more?
Yes. So in that situation, what we have is we'll have a couple of, the PERC grant is for, it's provincial education requisition credit. So of the taxes that we bill, all the oil and gas industries, the non-res portion does have education amount. So the taxes of the 460,000 roughly, we're very certain that we will be unable to collect. But what we can do is we can submit an application to the province to receive back the education portion of it, so we won't have to pay that. Okay. So as of right now, we have paid over that 90,000 to the province for that requisition, but we just haven't collected it. So making this application, council will need to make a resolution to write off specific roll numbers, but then based on that resolution, we can make an application to the province to recollect that 90,000 that we never actually collected.
Okay. Are there other questions on the report? If so, does somebody want to move that we accept it?
I'll move that council accepts the corporate and finances financial service report as a.
We'll move into the Wheatland Regional Corporation request for billing. All in favor? Carried. Request for billing information from Wheatland Regional.
Yes, so Madam Chair, so one item that has kind of come up for discussion at some budget meetings have been the billing of the WRC and the contracted services specifically. So what we've kind of done is we've kind of come up with an analysis of the operational costs of the county as a whole, and then Galicia, the hamlet. So what we did was we went through a process called normalizing. So in normalizing, what we did was we took all the general ledger information, then we took out unique items such as capital revenue that comes in, debentures, any miscellaneous grant funding that has been kind of put into like water general, and any reserve transfers. So in 2017, the biggest reserve transfer in utilities was the transfer to the WRC for our phase 2 contribution. So what we kind of do there is we kind of take all those numbers out, and then we kind of come to how much revenue the county actually raised for operations. So, and please note that on page 246 of the second file is the RFD, and then that first one with kind of the Excel document kind of shows that we're projected to pull in about $30,000 more of revenue in 2018 than 17. We've only billed 9 months, and that's what's been recorded in the general ledger so far, so the remainder is kind of a projection. So the reason for the additional fund or the additional revenue is just a little bit of cube increase, and then we've also increased our rates from September 1st, 2018 to projected to the end of 2018. So then we kind of go to the cost of all the hamlets. So the cost did go up about $60,000. So those costs kind of broken out on the final page of this document kind of shows the differences between the previous hamlet operators that we did have on staff versus what's kind of being put back to the WRC. So if we do flip to that last page, it kind of breaks out the 2018 actuals and the 2017 actuals. So what I've done is we've included all the wages in 2017, which we did pay out to our previously 3 hamlet operators or utility operators, sorry. And then in 2018, what I've done is I've put in the WRC contracted service. So kind of the difference between those 2 years is about 70,000. So kind of the one comment from council at the previous budget meeting was that there was discussion on the amount of costs that went into the Galician Water Hamlet. So that being said, the costs of the differences between the two, it's kind of $70,000. And what we need to also consider is that the cost of the utility operators were built between different hamlets. So the way the billing of the WRC is currently working, it's just putting it towards the hamlet of Galician. So part of this resolution is that we want to try to get an accurate cost of what's kind of being put in from hamlet to hamlet. So that's why we're kind of asking for the WRC board or the elected board members from the county to reach out to the WRC to get accurate billing for hamlet to hamlet, so we can kind of understand how much is being put in to each specific hamlet.
I've been for a long time, and they are moving towards that. Their timesheets, I forget the program they're using, but they can track operators down to the half hour where they are. And then the mileage part is easily done after that. I'd asked for accurate information on actually what they would charge us to do the billing too, to actually stuff the envelopes. And that 70,000 that's over, I find that in my calculations, I kind of calculated we overpaid about 80,000 just because of the way we were being charged. So validates my my rough numbers, that's for sure. But yeah, I definitely I'll definitely push for that. I'm thinking if we get this passed, though, a nice little letter from the county probably wouldn't hurt either, as to the meeting. I'll make that motion, sure.
Discussion? All in favor of Glenn's motion? Carried. Did any administration want to speak to the Hamlet and Wheatland Regional Corporation operations and maintenance responsibilities that was handed out?
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
So through the chair, basically what you have handed out before you is there a request previously for a breakdown of duties that, I mean, by no means is this duties on both sides. There are additional duties both by the Hamlet crew and by WRC that aren't listed on here. These are just kind of the duties that do cross over in some areas and they interact with each other. So you'll see the first page here is basically the Hamlet operators. We have a crew of 3 that go around, and these are the areas where they may interact with WRC staff. See what you see in the highlighted areas here are basically areas where we feel that they may require WRC inclusion or some involvement based on their training or their certifications, that sort of thing. Valve exercising for one, they're closing, they're potentially depressurizing systems. Not necessarily under legislation right now, but our inspector has recommended that a certified water distribution operator be on site when we do these sort of things. Same with pumping of the non-draining hydrants, frozen line steaming, that's for some of the water lines we have in Speargrass that are a little shallow and do freeze in the colder temperatures. And then the other page is the WRC activities. So where they interact with each other are the lagoon releases, the obviously flushing after a water main break. They have to do the bacterial testing and make sure that meets specifications before they put it back into public consumption, that sort of thing. Compliance and monitoring, and valve exercising again on there. So this is kind of a little breakdown of duties on both sides. Like I say, this doesn't do anything, speak to any of the treatment or the lagoon releases, anything that WRC does, or on the other hand, the Hamlet crews, waste transfer site operations, snow plowing, that kind of thing is also included on here. So this is just, I think we estimate about 50% of our time for the Hamlet crew is spent on utility, water and wastewater systems, and the remainder is other Hamlet activities. So just kind of an overview.
50%?
About 50%, yeah, is what we estimate. So just kind of for your information, an overview of the duties in the field there.
Any questions?
Just a comment, because I asked at WRC the Hamlets, or not the Hamlets, but the villages, and they don't have any staff that does any of this. The WRC does all of this stuff. 100%.
Don't have enough staff. A lot of this stuff they were never doing in the village.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I wanted this brought out, was because of, we still have people that are doing some of this work. What was contracted out to WRC, was it supposed to go 100%? Was it not? That's the point I was trying to bring up, was there is a commingling of things, and I don't have a problem with that. It just needs to be addressed, because we're getting charged one rate and we're subsidizing staff for that rate. And yeah.
I know how the contracts worked. It took me a long time to figure them out, but I know them now. And we were charged for every minute they worked for us, we were charged for that, right? The contracts were a contract. We do all this, and found the money someplace else. I know where they found it from now too. But I'm thinking that's going to change. It has to change. It can't continue on like that. Contracts are going to have to be for work performed. And as an instance, Standard paid a fee, and they were within $1,000, I think, to my figuring, to what I could pull out. And Rocky Ford was way under, because they had a bad year for stuff falling apart. Next year, maybe it's Standard or Galician's turn, I don't know, but you have to pay for the service you use. And as far as budgeting for it, it's no different than we budget for it now. We just take an average of what it is, and if we have a bad year, we have to find the money, and if it was a good year, we have money going back. But to continue the way we're going, no, I can't support that. I don't think anybody here can. And I think in the villages are on board with that. Things have to change. So that's why they're right now busy trying to get a cost of what every little part of that is. So when they use that service, it's added on to their monthly fee. So if we know how much it costs to produce one bill, if you're getting 300 bills, you pay 300 times. And if you're getting 200, you're paying, right? And same with hours of work and all the way down. They have different pay grids for different caliber or different qualified positions. I think it's a doable thing. You just got to get the numbers in the right square. And then push a button, there it is, your bill.
Thanks for this, provides some clarity, because I know I've asked the question one board and another over here, and then at the board, and I got two different answers, but this gives me the answer as to what our guys are doing and what we're sharing, and that helps a lot. Thank you very much.
Thanks. All in favor of Jason's motion? On a related note, I had an idea, and I'm not sure if I'm the only counselor that would be interested in this, but I know we had a tour of Wheatland Regional Corporation of the new plant, but I was wondering if it might be possible for any counselors that are interested to be walked through kind of water treatment processes at the plant, maybe even go look at like Carsland, and just a little bit more in depth about the processes and how it works. And I'll be the first to admit my ignorance, but I would like to be walked through like from when the water is drawn from WID and I realize we also do the river, so maybe look at the two different methods and just have that explained to me. It will help me understand stuff like this more if I understand the procedures more. If I'm the only one, that's fine. Is anyone else interested in that? Glenn?
I would definitely like for council to go and see the process at Rosebud, how they mitigated province directive years ago. For you not aware of, the province decreed that we had to evacuate the hamlet because the water was that bad. We got it down so they couldn't drink it. And we walked around late at night, one night, passing out bottled water. It's the same water they had before and the same water they have now. For whatever reason, we won't discuss that now. But staff come up with an innovative way to use less chemical, and I'm thinking it would do good for you all to go up and look at the well, the cistern up on top of the hill, and go look at the plant itself. You could gain an appreciation for how innovative our staff are, how caring they are. And the processes at Carsland is a little bit different than the one at Standard. I think we have different treatment facilities options there. Yeah, I've seen them all. I don't mind go back see them again. I find them extremely informative. Don't leave out Rosebud.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I'm in favor of doing it, and yeah, Rosebud's a simple system versus, shows all the parameters of what's here. From the basic groundwater all the way up, so yeah, it's great.
Tom, Ben? Ben, I know you've probably seen it all 100 times. Tom? So maybe if administration could facilitate a tour for interested council?
Yeah, so we'll coordinate that through WRC, but we'll do all the facilities. Is that
That'd be
what I'm
great.
hearing? Yep.
Thank
No
you.
problem. I'll make that happen shortly.
We'll move on to 4.2B, the tax auction.
Yes, Madam Chair. So on page 251 of the second file is our annual property tax auction. So these are properties that have gone onto the tax notification list and have not come off after advertising. There is typically one to three properties on there annually.
Anybody have any questions? We'll need a motion for a reserve bid and conditions for the property sale.
I'll make a motion for a reserve bid. The property offered at the November 8th, 2018 property tax auction as follows. Roll number 2770195 based on the appraisal of a reserve bid of $12,300. Conditions and reservations contained in the existing certificate of title.
Discussion? All in favor? Carried. We have 4.2B4, the fire services policy.
Yes, Madam Chair. So
Battery? Well, maybe just take a 5-minute break. Everybody can stretch their legs. Remembrance Day wreaths. I dare you to eat one. Meeting back to order, and we'll look at the fire services policy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on page 253 of the second file of the agenda package, what we need to do is we need to bring up the current volunteer firefighter wage. So currently we're paying $12 an hour, and as of October 1st, the minimum wage is increased to $15 an hour. So we need to kind of adjust this policy. So on the draft policy, so the last page of this RFD on the attachment, so I believe that would be page 256. Under here through revisions or review through Allen and Reeve Link, there is an error in here. Instead of the under 10 or 11.10.1 under point B, we have in there currently 2 hours minimum, but it should be 3. So that was just a legislative requirement that the county's missed. So.
And that's just employment standards. It's a minimum hours of work, and there's no exception for volunteer firefighters. But basically what we're doing is we're just setting it so it will fluctuate with minimum wage rather than having to redo the policy if minimum wage were to change. Is there any questions? Alan?
Madam Chair, I just have one comment. The pay for October for the firefighters has just been submitted, obviously, because it's first part of November, so they have not been paid for October. So this would be basically, we wouldn't have to do any retro right now. It would just take place, and they would, so no retro would be required if council so chooses to.
Any, Glenn?
1110, it says the CRA minimum hourly rate. Should that be Alberta wage or so? It's not the CRA, is it?
No. Through Madam Chair, yes, that is correct, Deputy Reeve Kester. So that is a provincial legislated amount. So that was also kind of an error in that table. So the resolution is correct with the provincial minimum wage standards, but we'll update that table as well.
Thanks for pointing that out. A motion? Okay. Oh, sorry. All right, a motion? Thanks, Glenn. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Brian. We'll move on to Transportation and Agriculture report.
Afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
So you'll see my transportation and agriculture part in front of you. Some highlights, we are finalizing some of the paving this last couple weeks. Doing the second lift on Township 240 now, so we should have, yeah, there you go. So we should have that completed. Hopefully everything, depending on weather, completed mid to late November. Okay.
Now that they've raised the road.
Yep.
When the snowplows go down the road, are they gonna take my fence out?
I'm thinking we angled it just right, so it'll go over there, yeah, no.
Well, no,
little of both, yeah.
I think another foot, I think we're good. I think I'm gonna, yeah.
There you go, yeah.
Mike?
Free moisture.
Counselor Bigger had a question. She
Yes.
was wondering about the paving on Stringmere Street and what your best guess would be if it's going to be completed or not.
Yeah, through the chair, I believe that they were to do that this week. If I'm not sure when that request came in, but I think they are, if they're not out there today, they have planned to finish
Okay.
it within the next few days.
Perfect.
So I can confirm that, but.
I have another odd question, also from Counselor Bigger. It's regarding dust control in cemeteries. Has she spoken to you about that?
No.
Okay. Is there? Oh, we're in trouble. Okay, I'm going to just perhaps ask Donna through Alan to get further details because
Okay.
I don't have all of the details on it, but she was wondering if there was a policy regarding dust control in cemeteries.
Right.
And I didn't think I had seen one. Yeah, possibly, it might possibly be going by the cemeteries.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, we only have Rosebud and Gleason. Both of those are dead-end roads, and the speed in the cemetery does not usually require dust control, so,
Okay.
yeah.
And there was some question about this cemetery, if it's a public cemetery or private, but I'm gonna have her get those details through
Okay.
you to Mike.
Right.
And then we'll look into that. So I believe it might have been a private one, actually, so. Okay, sorry, that was
No, that's good, yeah. Yeah, I'll wait for the request.
okay, perfect. Does anyone have any other questions regarding Mike's report? Can we have a motion to accept it, please? Tom, all in favor? Thank you. We have a request for decision about the dust control and snow plowing policies. We were warned.
So through the chair, what you see in front of you is the same reiteration that I brought to the committee of the whole meeting back in September. Just a few revisions, definitely, and more in the dust control, or sorry, the snowplow side is a prioritizing of the routes through the hamlets. So we have the attached maps that'll become part of our policy here, policy document, if so accepted. And back to the dust control, that was more just clarifying where we will go out and put county applied and paid for dust control throughout the county. Just a little bit more clarification on that, what we need as a basis.
Does anybody have any questions about the policies as proposed?
Just on the car count, I know you talked about there was some newer equipment out to count.
Yes.
So we got the proper data and how often we do it and things like that. Is that a different kind of thing that would coincide, or is that just staff whenever we decide to put it wherever? And
Yeah, so through the chair, we with Councillor Clausen speaking of, we did purchase some equipment and actually looking at getting a couple more of these digital counters next year. They're more stealthy. They're a little harder to pick out by the traveling public. And then with that, we hope we get a more accurate count. We haven't had much feedback on the use of those yet, so hopefully in the coming year, I'll have a little bit better report based on what the current vacuum ones that we use, or the pressure ones that we use, and these ones. So.
yeah, my background on the question is just because a lot of people use that as a door to open to get the dust control. So if that data is valid and current, helps a lot too, right?
Absolutely.
I'm sure you're the same way.
Yeah.
Any further comments? Do we have a motion? Ben? Ben has moved that we approve the dust control and snow removal policy. All in favor? Carried. A land lease, or calcium refund, no. Yeah, calcium refund. Mike, do you want to speak to this, or?
Sure, yeah. Just if there's any questions, this is a refund for an application of calcium that wasn't followed through this year, so it's a request from the ratepayer to have the refund.
You guys just didn't have time?
Truthfully, it was missed. It was,
Just, if they're interested in doing it next year, I would like to see them get done. One of the first ones, just show.
For
some
sure.
Apologize.
Yep.
Just, I don't know.
Any other questions? Can we have a motion? Tom has moved. All in favor? Carried. And the land lease?
I do have questions on this. I actually had just got a call during lunch about this.
Okay.
Right now, it is, the 15-year lease was to Goldsmith,
Yes.
but he wasn't farming. He rented it to Rick Gordon.
Yeah.
And Rick lives half a mile to the south, but he doesn't own any land surrounding the parcel. And according to the RFD, he wouldn't be eligible for rental. And he's wondering, I mean, most farms around here, if I'm renting to someone and contract comes up, the current renter would have the first right of refusal. Or if I were to sell land that I was renting, the renter would have first right of refusal. And with it the way it is, Rick wouldn't even have a chance unless no surrounding farmer would want it. So I'm just curious where council stands on that. I mean, Rick's been farming it for 15 years, but he's been renting it off of Goldsmith, Robert Goldsmith.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we can open it up to more than just the adjacent landowners or not.
Yeah. Alan, is it possible to have a copy of the lease, the policy? I don't have it attached here. Is there? It's a fairly short.
Just if you need more information, we'll bring it back December 4th.
Okay. Yep, that can work.
I would make that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
What's that? Yes, for sure. Yeah, more detail, and I'll look at the adjacents and the existing tenant.
Yeah, he just owns the farm just north of Clooney, and there's a quarter between him and the current gravel pit, and he's been farming the gravel pit, so.
Right, yeah.
So perhaps one of the things we can do in an agreement, I don't think we have in there that there can be no subletting of the lease, because it sounds like maybe that's just part of what's going on.
I'll bring, yeah, through the chair, I'll bring back a few options. Like I say, the open tender is a option if the adjacents do not give, or do not show interest. So we can bring back 3 options for this.
We'll move to the proposed land purchase. We might have to have a legal look too.
Yeah, I'll
First
bring a
right of refusal.
few, a little more background on it then.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the proposed land purchase under 4.2C5. Mike, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, for sure. So this is, through the chair, this is an instance that we see happen more and more in the county here. We have basically a public road constructed on land that is not in a legal right-of-way. We come across this here and there, and when we do, we try and rectify them by acquiring the right-of-way from the landowner and registering as an actual legal road plan. So that's what the request is for here, is basically to take that land and put it into county jurisdiction, basically.
Anybody have any questions, comments? Scott?
Are we buying a wetland? If we are, we don't want it.
So, yeah, so through the chair, the application is for a 20-meter wide right-of-way.
Can we have a motion? Any discussion? All in favor? We'll move to the environmental audit report.
Okay, so the RFD you see before you is a request to accept as information the environmental audit.
Yeah, so the audit committee presented to council. Does council have any other questions? Can I have a motion to accept it? Thanks, Scott. All in favor? We'll move to 4.2C7. An RFD for capital equipment purchase.
Okay, as in previous years, this RFD is for sole sourcing the capital purchase equipment for 2019.
I have a question. So I investigated this a little bit and I read our procurement policy, and then I looked at the New West Partnership trade agreement. Are we doing the sole sourcing under the premise that we can demonstrate that there's only one supplier that's able to meet the requirements of the procurement, or what's our rationale for it?
So through the chair, the rationale is basically specific equipment we need for each application here. We've deemed it basically a better end result by buying one manufacturer and being able to source the same parts supplier, as well as keeping an inventory of the parts that we need on site there. So we find it beneficial to us by going this route.
Any questions? Ben has moved that we approve it. Any further discussion? All in favor? We have a request from Dallin Fire to install cisterns. Anybody have any questions?
I'll move it.
Any discussion?
Is that well water that fills those, Ben? Yes. Is it? Yeah.
Historically, the one across from the hall, but there's been some issues with that.
Yeah, and at certain times, they have a water truck parked inside the hall.
Yeah.
So they have a tank, but they just want an actual cistern.
Any further discussion? All in favor? We'll move to the ASB organization policy. So we just need to repeal the Agriculture Services Board Organization Policy 2.12. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? We'll move to the modular office space. want to speak to that?
Sure, yeah, so. Here we go. Thanks. So through the chair, request is made for information basically on costs of operation and installation of a modular system for Wheatland County Family Services here. You can see in the request for decision here, there was a floor plan set up, discussed with our staff in WSSS, and we've done a quote up based on the cost of installation, servicing, and overall operations of that structure. So this is for information right now for council to have.
Just with respect to this, I have an idea for council to consider, and I'm not sure what council's thoughts are on it. But we currently have a large office space designated for Reeve and council use. And I just wasn't sure how much we're utilizing that space and if we would be willing to consider turning that space over for WFCSS space, if administration can work with WFCSS administration, if that might be a feasible option. And I don't know about the feasibility of that yet, but just something for our administration. I know Alan's been working on how to allocate office space based on the new organizational charts. Council's thoughts? Glenn?
That would be their only space?
Not necessarily. Alan had looked a little bit. Yeah, Alan, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so I guess up to council, but if council was able to free that space up for administration, we'd look at administration using that or FCSS. So it would give us one more office space, and we might be able to, I think we'd be able to swing without putting an expansion on the building or bringing in a portable at this time until we get, you know, some room up at the ASB. Could buy us some time if council was okay with giving up that as a space. So whether it would be FCSS or whether it would be our own staff, that yet has to be worked out. So I'd kind of like to keep it open to either or just leave it up to administration to kind of work out the space requirements and just a motion to give up that space for council use.
Okay. No, I'm just concerned with FCSS, they need offices for confidentiality and stuff too. If that's their only office, that wouldn't be able to provide it. I also had another harebrained idea too. If we're going to move a modular in, we're going to add, if I remember, like 12 offices onto the FCR to Ag Services.
Was it
We could
12? Yeah.
could almost put a modular down there in Ag Service, move down that staff right away, and then add on, and that's more free space here for the future too, if you get my drift. Move that staff we were going to move to Ag Service part, but we could have a modular there. There's more room to set one up there, I'm sure. And then it could be there before the addition goes on. It would be less disruptive, that's for sure. Thought I had.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think with Amber and Alan's proposition there, if we're willing to give up that space, we would not have to spend money on the module. And I think it's a big win. I mean, even if it is a little clustered chaos for a month trying to find out where to put everyone, if it is administration or WFCSS in that office. I mean, if we can save, how much did they say it was? Whatever number they said it was. Yeah, 500,000. I think it's worth it.
I did want to let council know too, I spoke with Alan. There is both our conference room, because I didn't want anybody to feel like then you wouldn't have space to utilize at the county office if you had to conduct a meeting or work or whatever. So there is the conference room that we could, I believe it's on a first basis booking system. And then there's also a conference room just inside the door to your right when you come in. So if we needed to conduct meetings, you could work in there if you needed to. And I think that's first come, first serve as well.
I really, I really like the idea of trying to repurpose that room, just because I have a hard time swallowing that $500,000 for a portable. It's, I think that if we use this and we still have enough time, so that as we're building the ASB building, that there has to be some modifications done to that we need a little bit more space, we have to change the office configuration around, then fine. It looks, and it gives us the appearance that we're trying to be fiscally responsible here. We are giving up something in order to.
Well, I think it's not just an appearance. It
is.
legitimately is a significant cost savings. But not only that, looking at it from a WFCSS perspective, from our board, some of our priorities were continuity for our clients is very important. Change can be very challenging with the population that WFCSS serves. So to be able to maintain the location here and not have, significant moving for them to accommodate, as well, just the cohesiveness of having like our Wheatland FCSS still in with our staff here. I think there can be I know there's some partnerships like borrowing policies and, things like that that work really well for us. And we're thankful for that relationship with the county as well. So, and I'm not saying it will absolutely work. It just, if we could give the latitude to staff, to administration, to work with the WFCSS administration and board, just to look at those possibilities.
I'm all for giving up the office space for that. I think it's a great idea. Just a side note, on the tour of the new Rocky View building, every 2 councillors have their own office. They share one between 2. The Reeve has his own office. They have their own wing with their own staff. It is impressive, and I would
And
never
we're
vote
not
for anything
Rocky
like
View.
that. But they claim that they're full-time.
I know we probably covered it in the planning priorities, but once the Ag Service Board expansion is built, we will have enough room for everyone without moving WFCSS. Is that correct? Yeah, without putting an expansion on this building. So it's only temporary. If we move WFCSS into a smaller space, it's only going to be temporary. Yeah, okay.
Does somebody want to put a motion?
I just want to add to this consideration here, the boardroom. I don't understand why, if we ever did go to the portable, why we would even consider that when we have rooms here that they could use. That's just something that on the portable end of it, I see the boardroom that can accommodate 30 to 40 people on a portable. It just seems, I'll be
So
frank,
just to-
absurd to me.
Yeah, just to clarify that, they use that space, like they use the current ECC is what they're calling a boardroom. It would never be used, well, I shouldn't say it would never, the board may meet there. That wouldn't be the primary use of it. They use it for a wide range of things. Recently, I know they put together, I can't remember how many caregiver binders, but they basically, Mackenzie's nodding her head, I'm sure she saw them in there. So they would have had like dozens and dozens of binders spread out, and they're actually physically using the space to sort those. They also have their lunch and learns where they have, I think, between 30 up to 40 people that will come for the lunch and learn for different activities and things like that. So I think boardroom, the title of it could be misleading or deceiving. The actual function of it would be more of a multi-purpose room. So.
My point being is that that room is still there, and if they're across the way, it's still there.
Just a question and perhaps concern, and we'll leave staff to figuring out how it's going to work, but what's the plan if WFCSS doesn't agree with moving? Okay.
This just would give the latitude to our administration to work with their administration and the WFCSS board to see if there's a viable solution there that's more fiscally responsible.
Okay, just with you saying that, I just want to voice my opinion on that, just so you know where I stand, and maybe council will give you a point of just so you know where to draw the line, to me, if WFCSS doesn't agree or or has a problem with the arrangement, we can't say that we didn't try to make it work on their terms and feasibility wise. If they, no matter what, and they still push for a module, I cannot, as a counselor, support that.
Just for some perspective, the modular, and I'm putting my WFCSS hat on now, that was just, I guess, a proposed option that the board came up with because of the space constraints that were happening here. From what I heard at the WFCSS board meeting was the preference was certainly to stay in this building. That's always been, it was let known to me when I first stepped onto the board that there were space constraints in this office, and that at some point with growth and changes to the org charts and things like that, that space may be required. But the hope was always, from what I heard, was to stay in this building, so.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if it happens.
Yeah.
I think.
Alan?
Has there been a motion made to
yet.
give up the Reeves and council?
So as a council, we should make a motion to give up the Reeves/council office so that administration can utilize that in space planning. Thanks, Tom. Further discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Mike has an addition to the agenda, and maybe we have the 3 o'clock appointment outside, so maybe if council wants to entertain an hour after. I've got two gentlemen here that want to speak about a couple matters, so it's up to council if you want to hear this now, this addition, or after. Well, I've got 3 other items yet before the 3 o'clock, so.
Mike, do you mind coming back after for this?
Okay, good, thanks.
Is that all right, council? Okay. We have the Planning, Economic Development, and Community Services report is in our package.
I won't speak about the report. If there's any questions, I'll answer those.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do have questions. It was brought to my attention that there is a property on Township 23, Range 22, Section 21, northeast section of, northeast quarter of 21. And there's a country residential acreage there that has been unfinished for about 7 years. It's
We've got it. We'll investigate further.
Okay.
I think we're aware of that particular location. Thank you.
They have made, in the last few weeks, they've put up siding, which is more, but they had a dirt floor when I was campaigning. So.
Any other questions regarding the report? Scott?
Is there any update on the sulfur stockpile that was offsite?
Yes, there was an update. I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe there's been 400 some ton removed. They were given till December 14th to remove all that, and they tell us they will be done removing it prior to that, pending the weather. So it is being actively moved. Yep.
Do we know where it's going?
I don't think we can speak to where every load going, but most of those are being spread on farmers' fields in the region, not necessarily in Wheatland County.
Further questions?
Yeah, just on the stockpile thing, what is the penalty for a person putting, you have to get special, we have to get, it's all discretionary use. So if I decide to stockpile something, what is the penalty for when I get caught with an illegal stockpile?
We issue a stop order like we did on that one. Again, bringing more material out, and then they work with our staff to come up with a game plan to get it removed. And if they do not comply, then there is a penalty in our bylaws. What the amount is, I don't know in this particular case, but I can certainly get that for you. Yep, yep, I will.
Anything else? A motion to accept the report? All in favor? Carried.
Madam Chairman, the next item is outdoor rink communication process. I've got Dave Rhymes here. If there's any questions, it's pretty straightforward, but if there's any questions on the outdoor rink, Dave's here to answer some of those if council so chooses.
We've all had a chance to look at the report. Does anybody have any questions?
Just now that there's been safety issues.
Not until we address those safety concerns. The concerns need to be addressed.
Okay, so what is the process going forward in the fact that Cheadle will definitely be having I don't think they're going to be using their whole ice surface. They're just going to go opposite direction. So they'll basically be using one end as a backstop. So there's very little that needs to be addressed here. So going forward, how do we get the rink going?
Madam Chairman, the intent was staff to work with the community groups and get those items rectified. That one in particular doesn't require a lot of work to get it up to an acceptable standard for the winter. So we would like to see that get up to that standard prior to use. And I think we still have time for that. I don't know if Dave wants to add any. Come on up, Dave, if you want to add anything more.
Through the chair, yeah, it's pretty easy to get those deficiencies corrected so it can be used this year on that rink at Cheadle.
And that report was emailed to council with kind of the interim measures that would be required.
Yes.
So just a question to Tom, Councillor Tom. Is there any flavor on from the community of Cheadle to buy that property? Then they don't have to worry about our safety conditions? It's all on them?
Well, yeah, no, the question is, and that's a good question, like the liability, and I don't know how this sorts out. Evidently, the county has an insurance, like if I use the Ball Diamond as an example, the Ball Diamond is basically run by a baseball association, but the county supplies the overarching insurance for that and the community association. So does the liability drop for the county because the people in Cheadle are more than willing to take on the responsibility of the arena or the skating rink and the playground area? We could subdivide that out. But I just don't know does that mitigate the county's liability?
Yeah, so currently the county owns that particular property, so we assume all responsibility and liability for that. If the county were to sell that, and under Section 70, there are certain requirements we have to follow because it's public land. If the county was to sell that, we absolve ourselves of total responsibility for that. The only thing with that is the concern that the standards may not be upkept, right? That's the only concern, and that's a council decision, not our administration's decision. So we can start working down that road if they want to engage those negotiations and discussions. We can certainly do that. Okay. Okay. And the final item, Madam Chair, before the 3 o'clock appointment would be the extended authority under the employee peace officers, and that's to do with our federal government and the legalization of cannabis and the concerns around that. I have the head peace officer here to speak about that if there's any questions for council or from council.
My question is, how can something that's been made legal be such a pain in the?
One of the challenges that we face is now if we, because the RCMP dealt with it before as a criminal code offense, now that it's not, the RCMP won't deal with it.
It was there before.
No, I know, but now we inherit that
I
responsibility.
know, but
So now the situation is if somebody has 8 plants, which 4 plants do we seize? And then we have to follow a process. So there's some concerns with that, but we have the authority now, so we have the responsibility. So when you're in, when council's in Edmonton at RMA, you should strongly voice a concern to the province of Alberta that the revenue needs to come back to the municipalities because we're going to incur all the expense. And the federal government's going to take 25%, do nothing or very little, and the provincial government's going to take a portion and do nothing.
Yep.
Are there any further questions? Can we have a motion, please? Scott? All in favor? Carried. We have a 3 o'clock appointment. Manager of Emergency and Fire Services, Judy Unsworth, for 3.2C, our Emergency and Fire Services regarding Clunie Fire Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Council. I'd like to point out that the Clunie Rural Fire Association is present today at request of Council and myself to be here for this report. I also want to point out that I'm the manager of fire and emergency, and I have an RFD before council, but I've asked and leaned on heavily Mike Zier and his department because it really is about buildings, and that is absolutely not my wheelhouse. So I don't want to mislead council in any way. What I'm asking for in the RFD as directed is to accept the closed information, and I know you've had the report for a while now, from both the engineers, the building and fire inspectors that went into the Clunie Fire Hall, and also that you would give us some direction on what you would like to do next. So whether it's to get a quote or how we're going to move forward. And I know that council's wish previously was to include the Clunie Association in this discussion. So can I ask General Manager Mike Zier to come up?
Thanks.
So through the chair, a request was made after the closure of Clunie to do a mold assessment and a remediation assessment on the site. So we had an engineering consultant come in, perform some sampling of the mold, and basically come back with some test results. They came back with a report that you see attached and on the website as well, if anyone else is interested. Basically breaks down the sampling of the mold, the strains, severities of it to that point, and then recommended remediation scope of work. So basically the methods that they recommend to remove the mold and remediate the site. So this is as far as this engineering consultant can take this. We also had the inspectors, and with that report you'll see there's also a number of photos just taken for interior, just for your review. So as well with that, we also had Superior, our building safety codes officers come in and do an inspection of each discipline to see what the building held right now is salvageable, the main concerned areas on top of the mold as well there. So you see basically there's a number of items that they recommend be reviewed and addressed. Some electrical problems, some plumbing issues, that sort of thing. The severity of these, from here, there isn't any severe shutdown, well, not shutdown, but any things that couldn't be remediated. Definitely concerned areas here, especially the mold, like the strains of there are things that should be resolved. It's not something that, and I'm no biologist or chemist by any means, but from what I read from the report, there are areas that need to be addressed prior to giving the sign off that it's safe to be in that building. So they do give recommendations on how to do that as well. The existing building and the repairs needed on that are spoken to here, but there's no fine details until we actually get a contractor in there to do an estimate, a quote on the level that we need to fix this to bring it up to code. And I guess that's what the RFD is ultimately asking for, is the permission or the recommendation to go forward and get a detailed cost estimate on full building remediation to ensure that we can, for one, do that, and then two, know what we're getting into to actually make that building livable, occupiable in the future. So that is the background information for the request here, and here to answer any questions on that.
Questions, discussion?
I think we definitely need to get we got to get a quote in here, what it's going to cost to get this building back to a usable condition, because until we have that information, we cannot decide if this, God forbid, costs $150,000 to get this thing back up into shape. Then we have to figure out what our plan as council is going forward. But we need that number. So yeah, I definitely recommend getting a firm quote to get the work done, get the mold remediated, and the work done to get the fire hall back into shape.
Just for clarification, as of this date, do we own this hall? So it's still not ours. Okay.
Further comments? Are we ready for a motion? Page 118. Oh, sorry.
I don't believe that we should be spending money on any studies to find out the cost or be putting in any money until we own the building. It's up to the owner, in my opinion, to bring it up to standard. That's my own opinion.
Is it just a process? Are we change of ownership, or what's holding it up?
So unfortunately, these things take time, so it's a matter of going through the process. I don't know where we're at with that. All I know was when we did the Strathmore rural, it took some time to get through that. I think we're getting fairly close, but I don't know exactly where we're at. Maybe one of these folks or Judy can help me out on where we're at with that. So whether it's a month or 2 months or 3 months, I don't know.
Through the chair. I met recently with Dave Nelson, and he certainly is capable of speaking for himself and his association. We have a contract in front of them, which is a simple transfer of assets agreement. There are a number of issues that they have with that agreement, and they're currently looking for a different lawyer to represent them. Is that fair to say, Dave? Yeah, so there's a couple of clauses in the transfer of asset that they're not happy with, and they would like to have a different lawyer, so they're looking for a new legal representation to make sure that they're fairly represented. And then, so we've got the agreement, it's just a matter of, hammering out the finer details. Is that accurately captured, Dave, what we talked about?
Council's wishes.
To Councillor Wilson's point, if we wait until all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, we are going to be pushing this thing down the road another 3. I do not foresee anything that we're not going to end up with that hall. We have to know what we're getting into. And if it's money spent, it's money spent, but at least it's information, and we need that information.
In regards to that as well, I agree with you. We need to know what it's going to cost because of transfer of assets. That could affect that too, because that's what's on a building that we're assuming has, and there's proof of damages or whatever. I mean, that affects value. Honestly, so I don't think it's bad to know what's there and how it's going to cost. We know what's there, what it's going to cost to fix it.
Well, I think the inspections are done. Do we typically pay significant fees for quotes?
So no, through the chair, we typically don't. We'd ask for 3 quotes from 3 reputable contractors.
There shouldn't be a
pay for
cost
that.
for the quoting,
No,
typically.
no.
It's not our building.
Yeah.
So for us to find out if it's in fair, do anything with it, who's paying to get that information on the table? Is that us?
Chairman, we've already paid to do those studies.
Yeah, I know we've paid that much, but is
Yeah.
that enough information?
Yes. Now we just need a quote to be adequately tell you guys what it's going to cost to get it up to snuff.
To remediate.
That's what we're asking for.
For us
We've already paid, the county has already paid to do the analysis on there, and you see that report in the council, and that was,
And the price is determined on the condition of the building? Or is the price already set?
Tom?
I'll make the motion that we accept the report as information, and I recommend staff get, put together whatever is required repairs and the mold remediation can be quoted and then brought back to council. Safety? Well, yeah, well, that's all, should be all.
To do the remediation
Yeah,
work based on the
exactly.
report.
And brings, how much it's going to cost to bring this building back to code?
Discussion.
I just want to clarify, just because we're getting that quote doesn't mean we will bring it up to code.
Right, we have to know what the number is.
It's information, so we're doing due diligence for any future decisions. All in favor of Tom's motion? Thank you.
Madam Chairman, if we could indulge council to go back to the handout that Mr. Zier handed out and give the opportunity for council to read that.
Yeah, you guys are still waiting for some information, right? Yeah. That's what I thought.
Do you know what information?
We still haven't received a copy.
Can I just ask, sir, could you just come to the microphone and identify yourself? Sure. Thank you.
Name is Vernon Mills. I'm the corporate treasurer and secretary for the Cloney Fire Rural Protection Association. What I would like to know is why we were never given a copy of this report. You've made it very clear that you don't own the building. So if we own the building, why don't we have a copy of what's going on and needs to be remediated in this building?
Alan, do you want to speak to that?
Not only that, you've also made it clear that we own the building and you don't. So why don't we have access to that building? You've got your locks on it, but you've made no absolute information as to why we can't go in there and do some of that work.
Alan?
I do not know the answer to that. I am going to defer to our person that's handling that, Judy, to speak about why they did not receive the report. It is a public report. It's on our website. It's public information. So you have no reason why you wouldn't receive that, Vern.
Judy?
Go ahead.
The report was a request of council, and it was delivered to council first. I would presume that they would have seen it on the website. I have been in conversation with all of the gentlemen. The reason we locked it is unsafe for people to inhabit right now. So there is very strict in the engineer's reports guidelines about what's going to have to happen in order for remediation quotes to begin and how you have to be dressed. The mold that is found there is not good mold, and so we cannot in good conscience allow anyone into that building. It is not because we're in any way trying to slight you.
I understand that. I'm going to put a motion on the floor that we give a paper copy of the reports that we've given the public to this executive, so they have it in paper.
Discussion? All in favor of Ben's motion?
We've asked for this.
If you can just identify yourself again, sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm Dave Nelson,
Thank you.
Cluny Rural Fire Protection Association. We've asked for this report several times. It has not been forthcoming. There is no notice on the fire hall that anything is wrong other than the padlocks. And had we had the report at the beginning, which was in June, we could have done something about it, even if you wouldn't. And if you can let somebody in to remediate a problem, then we can let somebody in to remediate a problem. But we can't do that if we have no access to the building.
Scott?
I believe the report was just submitted last month here from Wood, right?
I'm sorry.
It's not that old. The report's not that old. It wasn't done in June. The building was shut down, but we had to hire a company to come in and tell us exactly what it is, because we're not mold experts, nor of our staff or anything. We
It's
have to
dated
hire
October 18th.
So it's October 18th, we got the report. Nobody's doing this to single anybody out. They're doing it for everybody's health and safety. And there's special companies that are hired to do this. And
exactly.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what these guys do. And we're just trying to make sure everybody's safe. And to allow yourselves to go in there.
Had we known of the deficiencies in June, I don't think it would have taken us till now to decide to maybe do something about it.
Some of this is complicated by the letter that was received by council in December, well, received last fall when the Cluny Fire Association was dissolving. So I think that that's somewhat complicating this process. My apologies that the information hasn't always been forthcoming to you. And I think we'll work with administration and council to communicate better. And I know we've said that before.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It
It'll be
genuinely,
a big change.
it's genuine. We will endeavor, you guys deserve to have the information and communication, but it is complicated with that dissolution process and the process of the transfer of assets.
I think what we're saying is if you can't do it, and you've demonstrated that very ably, then for goodness sake, let us do it. Right now, you've got a pile of railway ties down there that's as big as this building. Can you imagine what happens if somebody lights them on fire? They're sitting right on the very south edge of the town.
Thanks for letting us know about that. Judy,
I'm
did you
wondering
have a
if the
comment?
building has been winterized, or are we going to have more damage to fix?
I'll let administration speak to that.
There's various things in there. There's an eye wash station. Has it been taken care of? We just have got no information from these people. I hope you never let any of these people get involved with food production, because if you do, we're in real trouble.
Administration, do you want to speak to that?
Thank you, and I certainly understand exactly how Dave feels. The report that they were looking for was the one that was given in camera the 1st of July. And they haven't been able to see their building since then, so there is a sense of disbelief on the amount of damage that was done. And our responsibility is to the safety of, first, the firefighters who operate out of that building and to their community. And I understand his frustration in not being able to see the report, but I'm very thankful for the motion that allows me to give them this in paper. So I'll make sure they have that before they leave, and we'll move forward.
I don't know where to go with you people. You're going to take another 6 months to do anything.
So administration, in terms of timeline, are you able to estimate how long it will take to get quotes for the remediation work? Alan?
I'll interject, Madam Chair. December 4th, we will bring quotes back to council so they can make an accurate decision. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And council will do our diligence to handle this in as expeditious manner as possible.
Thank you. Can I speak to Mr. Wilson's comment about owning the building?
Yes?
We thought that this would be all done by the end of December of last year. And we were going to dissolve our organization, and at that time you would have owned the building for $1. But because we didn't receive any information from the county for months and months and months, who knows what's going on?
Well, we have had some communication because you've been into our meetings, and we have communicated at meetings when you've been here. I've been there for that. So my apologies if there have been questions that haven't been answered, but council and administration will work with you to do that as well as we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've been wondering what that dollar's been sitting there for the last 3 months. That's what it's for.
Thanks, Ben.
We do appreciate you coming in, and I genuinely think all of us are here for the same reason. We want fire service for our rural ratepayers, and I do genuinely believe that we have the same end goal. It's just how we work together to get there.
Thank you. And try and cut through your
We
ridiculous
try to.
red tape.
We try
The rest
to.
of us can do it. Surely to goodness you people can do it. These people are receiving a lot of money every month. Make them earn it.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Oh, sorry, sir.
One more point I wanted to make, and as far as doing this work, many, many years ago, long before I ever got involved in electronics, I am a certified lather. Not only that, I'm also a charter member of Local 1316 for the carpenters and jointers. I am more than qualified to go in there and do some of those repairs myself. So you cannot use that as an excuse for unlocking those locks and getting us in there.
Well, I think the mold remediation is quite a specialized.
Do you realize what it takes to go in there and work on that mold? One of those little white face
It's more
masks.
extensive than that.
No,
I did read.
That's all it takes is one of those little white face masks.
That's your perception. I did read the standards, and I have dealt with mold remediation in the past. So there will need to be negative air filters and HEPA filters and things like that involved as
Yes.
well, and precautions, because we also don't want the mold spreading outside the area that it's isolated to now. That's something for the professionals and our administration to look at. That's outside of the purview of our council. Our council has directed staff to provide that report to you, and they will be getting quotes on the remediation.
Okay.
Thank you. If you can just identify yourself, I know you have before. Thanks, Andrew.
My name is Andrew. I'm on the Fire Association too. I just got one question for you guys. I want to know if the gas and power is still on in that building.
I believe the last time administration was asked, it is.
Because if the last thing, okay, we didn't have that information till now, because the last thing we want is if those water freeze in there, it's going to pop, it's going to make everything worse.
I believe administration confirmed at our last meeting that we addressed this issue, that it was still on. The
Okay.
utilities were still on.
Can I just ask a question of Judy? We are checking this building on a regular basis, correct?
Absolutely. It's being checked on at least once a week.
Who's paying the utilities on the building?
Currently, I believe the bills are going to the association, but we will absolutely be paying them.
I'll reiterate, this transfer of ownership really is a thorn in my side as to what we can do. We can clear that up. We can do something faster or just make a decision what we're going to do, but the transfer of ownership holding it up is definitely not, I don't think something that our council wanted to take ownership of it. We were given a letter to take it, and we're learning all these problems as it goes. We're trying to make the best decision of it, and it's just kind of one step forward, 3 steps back. And I don't blame staff in any way, shape, or form. They're trying to look out for everybody out there. I do have a hard time with it that it's not our building and we're locking it up. We've got the assets out of there. I don't know if we should still be having it locked up. If it's their building and they want to go in there, as long as they're not doing fire operations in there, what are we? The fire association owns the building. That's the question in the back of my head, is liability wise, if we even have a leg to stand on. I don't know.
Is the fire association dissolved?
Through the chair, I can't answer that for you. They were dissolved in December, but I believe they may have reformed.
Okay. Sir?
You know, another point I forgot to mention is that the caveat that is on the property is based on the fact that the trucks are in the building. So therefore, without those trucks in the building, there's absolutely no reason why there is a caveat. Your assets have been removed from the building. Therefore, your caveat is null and void. Fix it.
So, I don't know if I'm understanding the back and forth here, but, okay. There's no caveat that it doesn't work right. Anyways, my question is then, do you want the locks off? Do you want the building back? Do you want us out of there? Or do you want us to keep doing what we're doing and try to find a way to remediate the damages? Because it's not our building. If you think that we're taking too long, do you want us out of there? Do you want the building back for your own process?
And just before
we don't have any equipment in there.
Yeah. No.
We have no interest in any of the
I fully
equipment that's
agree.
in there.
And just before you answer Ben's question, did you guys reform as a society, or
Did we what?
reform as a fire association, or no? Yeah,
Yes,
you have?
we're reformed. We brought our status up to date.
Okay, no, that's
Yeah. We didn't think we would have to, but it looks like we got to do it again too.
So
This is obviously going to go into 2019.
you brought your status back up to date. Are they still under our mandate as a fire association? So
No, we brought our status up to date with the Societies Act.
but you haven't brought it back, like you have no contract with Wheatland County.
No, that's for sure we haven't.
So do you
Even though
want
we
to-
were told we would have.
So what I'm saying is, do you want the building back?
Not really. We want a fire hall. And right now, you can't provide us a fire hall unless you put up a sprung building. I suppose you could. Right away quick.
I know, but that's what we're trying to do.
We
is-
want our equipment so that it can operate. We've got the people. We need the equipment.
Alan, could you just clarify? So if they reformed as a society again in the Societies Act, would their previous society still be on the assets, or would the new society be? Same society? Okay. No, that's all I add.
That's correct.
They want to see that building back. They want to see.
We have diminished fire coverage, Ben, by a considerable amount. No.
We are dealing with very serious strains of mold from my research, and the time that it took to get those engineering reports and the building reports, that does take time, and that was important work to do so that we know what we're dealing with. We have done that. We're making a commitment to get the quotes, and then council, if what I'm hearing from you is you would prefer it be a fire hall. So
Yes.
council's going to need to deliberate and look at those quotes, weigh the cost benefit analysis of those quotes in the current building, and then council will have a decision to make. And we'll see where the transfer of assets goes.
If I may, why are we transferring assets if they've reformed as a society? If they're wanting the contract again, or if they're wanting the fire hall there and they already reformed their association, are you guys wanting to stay as association, or are you gonna fold that association again?
We're going to fold that association as soon as we get working this over.
Okay. So the county will continue with the process as we've described today. We'll get those quotes. We have the reports. We'll make sure that we get that into your hands, and council will deliberate on that once we have the quotes. Judy?
Through the chair, if I can help, their society status is just under the society. They haven't necessarily reformed as an association, but they do need to stay. I would hope that they would as an association so we can get the transfer of assets agreements done. And prior to this mess, I was looking forward to working with the association because they've had 50 years of experience in running this fire service, and I look forward to working with them. So as an association, they need to continue their nonprofit status under the Societies Act. And the transfer of assets, Dave's mic wasn't on, but what he did say is he'd like for it to happen sooner than later. And we just need to make sure that happens as quickly as possible and as painlessly as possible.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in, gentlemen. Do you have any other questions? Okay, we appreciate your time this afternoon. Mike has circulated an RFD for an increased cost for the Gleason Lagoon liner repair and refurbishment capital project. The total cost of the project looks like it's going to exceed the budgeted amount, so we'll let Mike speak to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the RFD you see in front of you is for an increase to the budget amount of $150,000 for a $300,000 total for Gleason liner repair and refurbishment. So we had 3 valid tenders come back. Basically, you see in the details here that as the lagoon was drained down, we found more damage, and because of that, the cost increased for every budget coming back, or every tender coming back. So this remainder will be funded from the Capital Continuity Reserve.
Just clarification, is it, like it's the black liner, I'm assuming, that lagoons are utilized most times?
That's correct. So some details on this repair. It's there's a number of holes from an old pumping system that's punctured the liner. As well, a lot of the liner is slumped because of just age. It's a very old lagoon. So. No. I get holes in you. Wastewater, totally different. Totally different.
What's the age of the lagoon, the liner?
I don't know.
Because they didn't come in until probably 20 years ago or so?
At least, yeah. I believe we were going over into the reserve at that time.
So they got to replace full strips, or
Nope.
they got to just?
No,
patch?
all this is peeling back the liner, refurbishing the banks, and then rekeying it in, and then about 60 or 70 holes punctured through it that are seeping wastewater through. So we'd like to get that repaired this year if we could.
Can we have a motion? Discussion?
Is that all contracted work, or is that our crews doing some of this work?
Through the chair, this is all from contract.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Glenn?
What's the guarantee, or what's the lifespan of the repairs?
Well, it's HDPE liners, so there is as far as actual holes, these were all, the holes were put in place from an old pumping system, like I mentioned, and that's not in existence anymore. So we anticipate this will last the length of the lagoon there, the lifespan of the lagoon.
Okay, so there's no reason why we would replace the total liner then type of thing?
No, there's no need for that,
Okay.
definitely.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there further discussion? All in favor? Put it on my tab. No, not at all.
Just one question, please.
Of course.
Going back to that Clooney thing, when we get the quotes on the 4th, could we get a guesstimate of when the ownership would be transferred? Because I'm hearing some people might not be wanting to fix it up if we don't know when.
Yeah, well, we ain't gonna touch it, but if they're the ones holding up they're holding up the.
Use your mic. Okay, we just have a couple more things on our agenda. We have the correspondence that was circulated in the package. Does anybody have anything out of that that we need to discuss? Christmas hamper will come after. From the town of Strathmore.
More than just Chris funding, but.
So we have on page 410.
I will start the discussion if that's okay. I actually, after seeing what other municipalities are funding, I do agree with the ask. But I wanted an ask. I want them to come and present to council. We are 5 minutes away. If they don't have the decency to do that, they don't get that, in my opinion.
Through the chair, I've been thinking about this ever since we got the ask. We've got a 5-year contract. It's not up until 2020? 21. When is that up, Alan?
The last year was 2020, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right.
21? If we're going to go back and revisit this, we have to revisit it for everybody.
Oh, no, I fully agree.
And I don't agree with that because we put this in place. I just did the presentation down at Drumheller to another mayor, and they're more than thankful for any funding that they get. My question is, why don't we leave this run till it's finished? Then we'll sit down and reevaluate it, like we said we would at the first. It was their choice not to be part of the program to start with. We can deal with them on a yearly until then. But if we go in there and say, okay, we're going to give you 30%, 40%, 50%, and we got to turn around and do exactly the same thing to every one of these other ones, and we're going to find out that we're going to be paying 80% or more because most of our people are using it more than the locals. So it'll be a reverse of what's going on out there. So if we do it for one, we do it for all of them.
No, I fully agree with you, Ben. I think
to me, the way I'm looking at it, I'm saying we let this run until the 5 years is up. Then we sit down and reevaluate it like we said at the start. And if they don't like that, then tough. We'll deal with them on a yearly basis with I'm fair. I'm fine with keeping their share as it is, even though they haven't signed off on it. That if they make the ask, we just put a motion on the floor to pay them according to what we paid the other ones.
Which it was what, 300,000 in the
for whatever
200,000. So
Alan had a comment.
So just so everybody understands, the CRISP funding was based on the population around the service center, based on a recreation study that was done quite some time ago. That was the most recent information we could utilize. So we determined that based on the demographics in the region, this is roughly how many people would be going into that community. That's why Strathmore's was 200,000. It's nothing to do with their population. We do know that they do have a pool. They're the only one in the area aside from Drumheller that has a pool. So that's what it was based on. And Deputy Reeve Kester was one of the councillors that brought it forward initially, and the amount was $750,000, and that was somewhat arbitrary, I think, Glenn, to say the least, at the time, so that we could contribute some to these urban municipalities. So there certainly can be work done on that. And you've seen some of the agreements. There's lots of other ones I can provide. So it might be a discussion at a planning and priorities kind of meeting before we get too far into it, and then possibly at a regional partnership meeting.
I too would just like to reiterate, I do agree with you, Ben. But once that contract is up, we've seen what other municipalities are paying. And not only that, but I would also like to see the numbers being proven. If they say 30%, I want to make sure it's 30%, because whether it's, you might not like it, then it might be 35, but it might be 27. I mean, I don't think we should be paying as just a random number they pulled out of thin air. And not only that, I would like to see some numbers on number of Strathmore residents using our facilities, because I don't think that's taken into effect. I think, and by no means do we go as far as saying, well, your residents use our roads, blah, blah, blah. But if we're going to do rec facilities, we need to know how many Strathmore residents are using Gleason, are using, that's about it, but other Cheadle Ball Diamonds, stuff like that. I mean, that's what needs to be brought out as well before we, and that's where I would say, yes, the regional partnership meeting is a good place, but if, and that's, I don't want to be the ass, but if I'm wanting to show partnership and collaboration with somebody, you go and talk to them. You sit down with them and talk about what the vision is of the collaboration for the future. And to me, Strathmore has not done that. Strathmore sends us requests, take us for supper, vague supper agenda that did nothing, and then ask for these big resolutions for our council. I mean, it's a slap in the face for me. They have to put their neck out there as much as we are. They have to. We're 5 minutes away. If their council can't come sit here, why are we even giving them a chance?
I'll disagree a little bit. I don't necessarily see this as a slap in the face. Mayor Pat Fuel did send a letter. That's one method of communicating. Certain councillors might prefer in person. Other councillors might prefer, you know, perhaps he wanted it very formal and in a letter. He's presented us that. I think we can ask them to come and meet with us or ask them to present to council. Another idea I had is we have the Recreation Committee that Tom represents us on. I even was thinking perhaps we need to look at some kind of, and I hate committees, but some kind of more regional recreation committee that can address some of these questions. And I know this regional recreation master plan has been talked about before. I think it might be worth investing in something like that, or having the committee look into something like that so we can get, I agree with you, I'd like to see some more accurate and more recent information, because I think some of the statistics that we have are outdated and the report that we have is a little bit aged. I don't know council's thoughts on that. Tom?
Okay. I think we've got crisp programming that I think we're all sort of agreed on, that we're willing to give the town. I think there's several things that are in play here. The town is working on a recreation master plan, which should give us solid numbers, and they'll be their numbers on what Strathmore or what county residents are using in Strathmore facilities. And the other thing, so getting ahead of ourselves, this 35% number might be probably high, but I'm not going to, and CMRB has talked about recreation. So they are going to mandate what the counties, what municipalities are going to have to pay each other's municipalities. That is a given. That has been stated. Mm-hmm. So for us to do anything before the CMRB is probably just pushing the cart before the horse. So I'm thinking that we honor the agreement, the CRISP agreement, if the town will sign back onto it, because they're the ones that got off of it. And then this will give us a couple of years to work through what our real numbers are. But I think there's a lot of things in transition here that are going to affect what we pay the town.
Absolutely.
Because we sit down there and say, yeah, we're going to pay you this much, and then CMRB comes in and says, no, you're going to pay us that much. Well, that's the number we're going to have to pay, right? So.
I just want to highlight one statement in Mayor Field's letter too. It does say we would like to respectfully request a meeting to initiate discussions on this matter at the earliest possible time. Just so, because I don't feel like the manner of this was forceful. It was just a way for them to broach the subject with us in a formal way and to introduce it to our council and open up conversations.
It'll be interesting because as I said, I fully support carrying on with the contract that they ended and then some after that, but I don't know how they will react to that because the ask in the letter from the budget numbers Amber sent out worked out just under 1.2 about, if that sounds about right, for about 30% of the operating cost on those facilities, 1.2 million. It would be pretty.
Through the chair, you got to remember where this ask came from. We came to an agreement with them over the new school building there and this field house that was attached to it. That's where the agreement we put together was for that, specifically for that. That's where they got their 30%.
But that's what I'm saying. I want the numbers supporting that.
But give them the 2 years to work on it. I still don't. I think what it's like selling a used car. They're out there and they threw a number out there. Now it's up. They want us to respond to it. They've started the negotiations, but we need time to look at it. We're not. To me, I don't think we jump into this in the next 6 to 8 months. We take the remainder of the term of
No, I'm fully agreeing with you, Ben. I'm just saying they might not be so perceptive when their ask in the letter is 1.2 and we're only willing $280,000.
We won't know
when
until
we're
we talk
doing
to
it,
them.
we've got to take into consideration the other members that are part of that. You've got Standard Hazard and Rocky Ford, and now you got and Drumheller in there. We have to look at every one of those and treat them all the same. We can't. These guys can't be expected to get more out of that than anybody else, and it may surprise you what it ends up being. It may surprise them.
Glenn?
When we started the CRIS money, it was not without, there was no consultation with the other municipalities until we come up with a number. The number was more or less picked. It was $500,000 of linear, which worked out to $250,000 of non-res, roughly. If we go down Strathmore's Road and we're paying a number of their budget that we didn't have any influence over the building of swimming pools or what they're trying to recover. We have no input. With the CRIS money, it was a strict grant, no strings attached, put it where you want. That is a grant, and we can give that and be done with it. But if we go down this other road and we're going to have to pay $1 every time somebody uses a swimming pool, that's a different concept altogether, and we're taking responsibility to pay their operating costs for infrastructure we had no say in. And I don't think that's right from us or from them, having another municipality involved in theirs. I prefer the grant process. And if the grant isn't enough, after we consult with everybody, and we increase it to $1 million like Newell County did. That's where I kind of got the idea from in the first place. Modeled it after them and we spread it around everybody. What the numbers use in their facility is, that's what they are, but the grant process is different. It's cleaner. And if we have a recreation grant where twice as many are used in Strathmore as Rocky Ford, that's the formula. I think that's valid. Maybe the pot of money isn't valid. Maybe the pot of money needs to grow. I'm sure Hazard, I don't know if that pot of money that they get from CRIS funding, did that play into their viability study? How the county's helping them out? So this money is looked at the government as a thing, and I don't want to change it. Right?
Alan?
Further, Madam Chair, further to what Deputy Reeve Kester talks about, I think the big challenge, I think, for us at Wheatland County is that Strathmore, Hazard, Standard, Rockford, Gleason, Carsland, each community operates a little bit differently in their facilities. I think they all provide a very good service, and I think it's more than adequate for our residents. However, when somebody says, I want 30% of our expenses in one community are considerably higher than another. So just don't forget that. So if that ask is there, I think there may need to be perhaps an ask from this council to say, we want input on how you're expending that money or how you're generating revenue. And I think Councillor Eichert said it when they were in, like, why 70%? Why not 100%? So those discussions need to happen, is rather than saying, here's the check, right? So kind of along the same lines as Deputy Reeve Kester. So some more discussion in regards to that.
Because if they can, and I fully agree with Glenn, because if they continue to go and say, if they do put up the twin rinks that they want, and then put another 4 sheets onto their curling rink and add to the pool, why we don't agree with that direction they're taking, so why should we continue paying 30%? I mean, if we're going to go down that route, like Glenn said, we have to have some say.
Alan?
I guess further to that, I think Councillor Clausen maybe talked about it a little bit in regards to CMRB. I mean, does that mean we're going to fund the zoo? We're going to fund the Olympics? But we get forced into it because, no, I mean, but I mean, those are the kinds of things. So fundamentally, I guess if Wheatland County says, no, we don't want to participate, and that's your right to do that when you represent your constituents, right? Their right is to, yeah, if they want to have a zoo, I guess they have a zoo. So maybe you get back to the premise, if you're going to use the zoo, maybe if you're outside of Calgary, you got to pay $180 to go to the zoo. I don't know, but why should this council be held hostage for somebody else making that decision? It's like your kid going to you and say, well, I want a truck, $100,000 truck, when they could probably get away with a $30,000 vehicle, right? But you're going to pay for 30% of it no matter what I buy, but you don't have any say in it. Anyway.
If I may, like I said, I think we have to sit down with them, and they did request that in the letter. So I will make the recommendation to staff to talk to their CAO and set up a meeting as soon as possible, preferably not in the next week and a half, please. Does it have to be in the new year? Can we do it December? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think the sooner the better. In the new year? Okay. Ben saying in the new year.
Like Alan pointed out, the CMRB has a big effect on this. It is on the servicing agenda. Recreation is on there. The perspective is going to be a lot different than what you guys are expecting, because it's going to be coming from the bigger center. And Strathmore's included in on that too. So anything that we do, I don't want to put too much effort into a new agreement, because it's going to come out of that. And Strathmore's going to be part of it. And whatever is decided, it's decided. How it's funded, we have no idea. We've asked that question. We still don't know. But I'm with you that Strathmore has to prove the percentage-wise, because they say 30% are outside of there.
35.
35, but I mean, is that Langdon, Rocky View?
Exactly.
I mean, my kids play and they go to Calgary and they go to here. And so, I mean, there has to be some hard numbers, but I think the CMRB is going to be doing most of that. So I'm in favor of just reinstating the CRISP in the short term. And then and that's all we can do. There is no negotiation, I don't think, because we have a bigger body than us with the representation that actually probably more accurately affects where the users go on the area is going to be deciding this anyways.
That's why I think we have to sit down with them. We can't just write I don't believe in writing a letter saying we're going to give you this much money. Well, we're going to sit down and explain why we're doing this. If they have questions, we can answer them. I'd rather do that. And if that's in the new year, you make them wait.
So through the chair, if we're going to do that, are we going to invite the other parties to the table? Or are we going to just do this with the big dog and then throw what's left out to the little ones? If we're going to do this the way we're talking about what we're thinking of doing, we need everybody at the table from the get-go. That's Hazard, Standard, Rocky Ford, maybe even Drumheller, because they're on the end of it, and then Strathmore, and sit down with all of them.
Well, if I may, Ben, I don't think we're going against the contract we have with the others. We would be sitting down and telling them we aren't going to renegotiate this contract.
I'm not talking about renegotiating this contract. I'm talking whatever agreement we come up with, whether after this crisp is finished, it's a 5-year agreement. We sit down, if we're going to start sitting down talking to Strathmore in the new year about how we're going to fund this, we need to sit down with all of them, and all of them together, so everybody hears the same story, and it all comes around. And it's going to take a couple of years to get it ironed out. But we don't do it with one and then go to the other ones and talk to them. We do it with all of them.
Glenn
at
had a
once.
comment next.
I entirely agree with Ben. Okay. I entirely agree with Ben. If we're going to talk to one about Chris, we're talking about them all at the same time. And, yeah, that was I wanted to amend the motion to include the villages and Drumheller. And we can have a meeting about it. Go ahead.
I agree with, because the CRISP funding is going to have to stay there for the other municipalities. But there's going to be something different in this beast because we are in the CMRB. And it cannot be equal. Like, they can come down, CMRB tells us that we owe the town of Strathmore $1.5 million every year. You can't do that with all the other ones. It's just not, because we're not under those constraints. Number one, we don't have the ability to do that. I'm hoping it doesn't come down to that, but it could very well come down to that. So CRISP funding has to stay. I agree with that, and it may have to be increased for all these other areas. But if percentage-wise, we can't use that percentage-wise number for the other municipalities because of we may very well get hammered in the CMRB about this.
Okay, we have 900 people in the CMRB. I'm willing to take my chances there too. That's all we have. Why do you think Strathmore's rethinking? I don't know. I've been grabbing at straws, but we have 900 people. So if it's going to cost us $1 million, it'll break Rocky View at 30,000 people. So I would think we could have a meeting, we can state our position that we're going to play out the 5 years. The talks are open now. Do we want to increase it, not increase it? What would you like to see? Do you like the format? Maybe it's different. We can start them talks now, start them with everyone. And if council agrees that we reinstate them for the next 3 years, then we can do that too. I don't mind doing that, but still, if we're going to talk about it, let's do it before the 5 years are up. And we can talk so everybody knows we're a partnership, we're not going to pull at straws. And if you would amend your motion to include the villages and Drumheller in this meeting.
Can I say one more
Scott
thing?
had a comment.
So in regards to CMRB and stuff too, I think if we have an agreement in place, that will go a long ways. And I don't have a problem with that. And you're right, we only have a certain amount of members, county people that live within that area, but Strathmore's in there. They're mandated to deal with that CMRB. So I think in the short term is just follow what we've had right now, bring it back into play, and then see what happens from that regards as well. I don't know what other options we have, because it.
Follow through with it. If we follow through with it shows the minister that this is a manageable size for us. If we be the stick, oh, we got 900 and run away. No, maybe the area is going to get bigger. I think we follow through with it, show we're willing to look at it, and collaborative in nature. I think it goes a long ways. And there's other things besides that 900 or that 200. It's the lodge, we're paying 2/3 of our requisition. Whatever our requisition is, that 100 and or 200, they pay half that much. Okay, so there's other infrastructure we're building, the Oxbow roads and stuff for them to get out of town. There could be collaboration on that too. So it's just not.
It's complex.
Yeah, it's just not the 200 grand.
And that's why, that alone is why I think we have to meet with Strathmore, strictly Strathmore. I'm not saying we don't meet with the other villages and Strathmore on recreation, but we have a direct ask from Strathmore, and we have to negotiate that ask, or at least tell them that we aren't going more than Chris, because until we renegotiate with everyone. So at first, I believe we have to meet with Strathmore and let them know what we're doing, and then if they want to renegotiate CRISP, we have to go with the whole group, the whole regional partnership.
Can we just hear Councillor Wilson's motion again? Do you have it, Margaret? Request.
Yeah, because I wouldn't limit it to CRISP funding, because I do want, by then I want numbers on how many urban citizens use our infrastructure, including roads, and why haven't we been getting collaboration funding on stuff like that. That's why I will, sorry Glenn, but I won't amend my motion, and I will stick beside Strathmore, with strictly Strathmore.
Scott? We're all dying.
CRISP funding was also budgeted for.
But
They didn't use 1 year, right?
they did not. They turned down the last 3 years.
So a negotiating.
Can I give a little bit of history on that, if I may? So at the time, there was a 5-year agreement put in front of everybody. Everybody signed except for Strathmore. Strathmore said because the minister was working on the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board process, they said, we won't sign, but we will do the first 2 years, knowing that year 3, the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board would be in place. Okay?
They take those first 2 years?
They did.
Yes.
So there's
They-
only 1 year that they haven't taken?
2018.
So far, yes. There's
And
only 1 year
20
they haven't taken. They
the
took
next 2 years.
2016 and 2017. 2018, they didn't sign for that. They actually amended the agreement. So they only had 2 years. And I think the thinking, I think, at the time was they felt because they were, for lack of a better word, pushing to have Wheatland County in to the CMRB, and that's a fact. I can show you documentation. Glenn can show you documentation, even though they might not have said that. It's true. They were pushing to have Wheatland County in there. And I think their feeling was if they had Wheatland County in there, then we would be forced into sharing servicing costs, whether that's recreation or water or wastewater. And that may come yet. But it only may come for that portion that's in there.
If we're in, the CRISP funding is to do with recreation. If we're going to sit down with Strathmore and discuss the other things that you were talking about, that's fine. But if it's recreation, we discuss it as a whole. Not as a part, as a whole. They backed out of the CRISP. We're willing to reinstate the CRISP funding if they're willing to do that for the next 3 years till that's over. And in that 3-year period, we sit at the table and we discuss, as Glenn had said, and I like his idea about rather than a percentage that it's you figure out what you're going to do and you do whatever. But if you're going to sit down with them separately, As far as I'm concerned, if it's to deal with recreation, we deal with all our residents the same way. We don't deal with them separately on recreation than we do anybody else.
Well, I would just say that the three villages have their three village meetings all the time. And,
all right.
and discuss things that probably pertain to us, but they don't invite us to the table. So
Right.
I just think there are certain things that can be talked about without the regionalization.
I don't have a problem, like I said, I don't have a problem sitting down with Strathmore and talking to them about that, but if we're gonna discuss regional recreation, we don't discuss it with them in isolation.
Tom?
Ben, I'm just a little, but if we're just talking about reinstating them into the existing, the deal that they walked off, it's the same deal that everybody else signed off on. Are we okay with that? And then that, I believe, is where Jason was heading. So if, like, I believe that if we have a meeting, and if your motion is suggesting that we're suggesting that they sign back onto the CRIS funding, and the reason that, and that is the reason, and then down the road, I agree with you that if we're raising funds.
I will clarify my motion in that sense, that I will direct staff to set up a meeting with Town of Strathmore to let them know that they are able to sign on to the contract that the rest of the municipalities within Wheatland County and adjacent Drumheller has signed on. And in that meeting, we can,
Discuss future options.
no, we can't
Oh,
discuss
sorry.
future
Okay.
options with them.
And then their council can deliberate on it as well.
Bring them here and sit in here and go and get into that discussion, you're gonna get into.
Very true, but I would rather that. Just because you're not planning to do that, so you have no intent to invite. I don't plan to get into a conversation. I plan to explain why we are only allowing them to sign on to the contract that they chose to leave. And with that, I will be explaining that there are a number of urban users on other facilities, and Strathmore's not paying for those other facilities. And out of that 35%, a number would be from Langdon and Rocky View and Chestermere and Bicyker and Irricana.
That need to be discussed as a whole.
I think I understand the difference between what Jason's not, we're not opening this up. It is, we're going to tell them that it's going to be opened up, but it's going to be opened up to everybody that's involved in our municipalities. And I think, I don't, because we need the numbers. We need to know what actual numbers are. None of us are shirking our responsibility of what we have to pay for recreation. We just don't know those numbers. This 35% is arbitrary. So until we get those numbers, but we can explain that. I can understand that we could sit down and explain to them that this is the process going forward.
Alan? And Glenn?
Can I just clarify a motion perhaps? Wheatland County Council direct administration to set up a meeting with Strathmore Town Council in the new year in regards to the CRIS funding agreement that Town of Strathmore previously had withdrawn from.
Glenn?
I'm okay with the CRISP funding they withdrawn from, but finding out the numbers, I'm opposed to. I'm opposed to on two reasons. Not everybody's in the room, not our whole county. And the other reason, I don't think it's pertinent to us. It's not our baby. We didn't build the swimming pool. We didn't build the Twin Arena. And we didn't decide that's the way it's going to be funded. They did. They're having trouble funding it, so they think they can just send us a bill. No, I don't agree with that. We've got half a county that are self-sufficient. They only got 300 people living in Rocky Ford. They don't get $1 tax money for that arena. They got 14,000 in Strathmore and they need $1 million. That doesn't make sense to me. I'll give them a grant to help them out. Rocky Ford pays high taxes, so do the other places. Give them the grant. If they want to spend it on their arena, fine. They want to pave a road, fine. It's their choice. Same with Strathmore. We have the numbers. We've had a recreation study done. We know there's roughly twice as many use Strathmore as they do with Rocky Ford, which is slightly more than standard, I believe, and then Hazard, and then Drumheller. And we reserve 50,000 each for Gleason and Carsland. We have the numbers. I don't want to get into the politics of paying individually because 35, oh, it was only 32, or it was 18 at this place. No, I don't want to get into that thing. We got into it because of the field house, and we said, the school come and said 30%, I believe, of the students here are rural. Okay, we said we pay the 30%. At the time, they weren't having the CRIS funding anymore. They might have got, if we had CRIS funding, maybe the thing would have been only 25%. I don't know. But the thing of it is, they got 30%, and we committed to 30% of the, on that building because we were in on it and we had the option. If we weren't in on it, it possibly wouldn't have been there. Or if Strathmore would have dug a little deeper and built it, thinking they'd hook us with 30% or 50% of the operating costs, that's not fair and that's not right. That's their municipality, and we can have the meeting to talk about this letter and the CRIS funding. Anything else, I want everybody here. It's on my credibility of the partnership. What does it hurt to have Rocky Ford here listening or standard? Knowing what's going on. They're going to watch it on the video anyway. We have a very strong partnership happening that's taken a few years to develop, and I don't want to lose it. And for whatever reason, it's a credibility issue for me, it's a transparency issue, and it's just being fair to everybody. So be careful. Thank you.
Alan?
Just to elaborate on Deputy Reeve Kester's comments, there was a recreation needs assessment completed by Wheatland County. We'd asked the town of Strathmore to participate, but they did not at that time, and that's fine. They had one that was, a couple of years old, and that was sufficient at the time. In that recreation needs assessment, it was determined by our residents in Wheatland County that a running track and an indoor sports center, like the one that's being built that's going to open shortly, Strathmore Motor Products Center, was a need, and that was the highest need. So council, that's one of the reasons why, the main reason why they funded that, because they knew it was a need for our residents. No one else has that kind of service except for Drumheller in our region. The next one is, I believe, probably Calgary when you go west, and I don't know, I think Brooks to the east. So I don't think Chestermere has one yet. They're looking at one. So that's why it's a little bit different. So this council had an opportunity to, and was directed by the public, to put some funds into that. So just further add.
Okay. That's all really helpful background and good information. We do have a motion on the floor. Are we prepared to vote? It was consistent, I think.
Can I read it out one more
Please.
time? Because I have it typed out and I'll send it to everybody if that's okay. Wheatland County Council would like to meet with Strathmore Town Council in the new year in regards to the CRIS funding agreement that the town of Strathmore previously had withdrawn from. And that would be the only topic to discuss.
Are we prepared to vote? All in favor of Jason's motion? Carried. Another thing I saw in correspondence was a request from STARS for continuation of our support there. Last year we did a $2 per capita contribution. They're requesting a renewal, and they are requesting that we consider a 3-year pledge. Would we like council to bring an RFD back for this?
I'll just make the motion that we continue our support with funding.
For just 2019, or would you like to consider their 3-year pledge for 2019, 2020, and 2020?
3-year pledge, please.
Discussion?
I've had a
Stars.
discussion with a resident of mine several times about this, and she feels very strongly that it should be a choice of the individual taxpayer to support it, because, and in her words, I'm trying to think of the best way she said it, STARS is very actively engaged in getting funds, and she feels that it should be up to the individual and not the municipality. And I told her I would say what she had said, because I understand her position, and, you know, I had to really think hard about it, because STARS is very good at collecting funds. And I do appreciate their service, and I'm not diminishing that in any way, shape, or form, but it should be an individual choice, is what she was saying. That's all I wanted to say.
Further discussion?
I was gonna do something stupid, like say, is there any way we can put a sign off on our taxes, but that ain't gonna work, because no one likes to pay more taxes than they make now, so, yeah, so forget it.
The reason I do this is because I value, and I know everybody does value that. And I mean, we're going to have the same conversation every 3 years. And I just can't see us not supporting a service this good.
Through the chair, we do this for Wademza. Same idea could apply there. I can pay for my own ambulance when it comes to the door. Get my checkbook out and write out a check for $1,000, and then I can get delivered. You can do the same thing for that. This is just another form of ambulance care for some of the more serious incidents, and anybody that's used it over the years or been involved with any family member that's had to use it understands the difference between that and ground movement of a patient to these. So I know I've heard that same comment that Scott is saying, that I'll make my own choice, I'll make my own donations, that's fine, but if you didn't have it, I know I'll change that and say, until you've used it, until you've seen what it's capable of doing. Some of them may do that. They used to do that with the fire insurance. I'm not paying fire insurance, I'm not going to have a fire, but when I have it, you bloody well better be there to put the fire out. Same process. I don't have an issue with funding.
Glenn?
There's the side benefits too. They have simulation training. I think I seen in the paper, was just out here at Wademza. They do hospital staff training for emergency critical incidents. I think is really valuable. And yes, it augments our ambulance system in a time when we're having growing pains, so to say, with our ambulance service in the county. Yeah, I used to, until I went on tour, it drastically changed the way I view it, not so much as a donation, but as an augmentation of training and service delivery. Plus the other benefit, it's another benefit too, is their dispatch and their site-specific locators in the county for industry. And you'll have to remember of the $2 cap that citizens aren't paying $2, they're only paying $1.80. Industry's paying the rest of it in this county, so, and that is a huge benefit for those industries too.
Further discussion? The motion on the floor, all in favor? You moved for a 3-year commitment. All in favor? a 3-year commitment, so rather than coming back to this every year, it would be for 2019, 2020, and 2021. All in favor? Carried. Earlier, we had a letter circulated regarding the 2018 campaign for the Strathmore and Wheatland County Christmas Hamper Society. Oh, sorry, yeah, and we didn't accept it, no. Sorry. Okay,
And you can accept.
please.
So further to the Drumheller stats that are there, Corporal Gerald Chirac, acting detachment commander in Drumheller. As you know, the detachment commander previously in Drumheller took a promotion. So he just wanted me to add further to his report that, as you will see year to date, our crime trends remain consistent with compared years past. Provincial traffic shows a dramatic increase for September of this year, and I'm attempting to clarify this number. The elevated traffic offense charges are likely a result of the provincial traffic unit operating in our area during the month of September, but I will advise you when I do have clarification, and he hasn't clarified that quite yet. One general duty vehicle has been equipped with electronic ticketing, and as old vehicles are replaced, the new vehicles will arrive with that equipment. This time there are no updates with regards to staffing of vacant positions. We are currently running with 3 vacancies, and requests for staffing action have been sent. A new shift schedule has been proposed for general duty members. This schedule will allow for more focused policing during busy times and address the scheduling issues which arose out of having vacancies in the shift rotation. And that's what he had there. And further, I wanted to also add that the crime mapping, our communications officer, Mackenzie, is working on that. And because we have 5 different detachments, it's a little bit of a challenge for the province to kind of mesh those, because our boundaries don't meet with the RCMP detachment boundaries. But I understand we probably in the new year, Mackenzie, kind of looks like we'll have that crime mapping. Town of Strathmore has their crime mapping up, and you can see what that looks like, and I think it's very beneficial. So, but that's all I had. Thank you.
Well, that's better. I thought you were really going to kind of push a watch clerk into that conversation from Drum. I was like, oh, here we go.
Excellent, thank you, Alan. Can we have a motion to adopt the correspondence or accept the correspondence? All in favor? Carried. Now we can move to the letter from the Strathmore and Wheatland County Christmas Hamper Society. They are grateful for our previous request, and they are requesting $3,300. Yes.
So just to clarify, last year Wheatland County gave $3,300. I know in the past Town of Strathmore has given less. My understanding is that the request from the Strathmore and Wheatland County Christmas Hamper Society is $3,300 from both partners. I do not believe they made any requests to the villages. So that's just kind of an update where it's at. So.
Okay.
Socialist now 35, 28.
Prorated. I don't know. I know I voted for this last year, and it's a good thing.
Person, Tom.
But I'm not sure this is the county's. This is in the purview of the
Know where they're going to live right now.
Well, by Christmas, nothing will change before Christmas. You know what I'm saying? This sort of is not a. Yeah, because do we have? And granddaughter is going to go on a band trip. Moncton, do we support her? I don't know.
Glenn?
What would the cost of 240 turkeys be?
It's more than turkeys.
Yeah, but how much would,
I think in the past,
It's approximately this
what we
cost.
used
I
to
think that's
yeah, we used to donate turkeys, and then it got to be, they were buying expensive turkeys instead of utility turkeys, and
They give out turkeys anymore.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They buy them for quality.
sure.
So,
so
In
in
the
the
interest of that-
past, it was, we have a charity foundation that we are charged with looking after, the Madsen Foundation, Charles
Charlie
Madsen.
Madsen Foundation.
That's where we used to get, because part of it was, you looked at it, yeah, we can buy a turkey with it. In recent years, we haven't been using that. And then when we were first on here, we were buying all the turkeys. And then that got old in a while, then we started changing to try and get Strathmore involved, and now they're maybe gonna be almost equal to us. But that's where it started, was the Charles Madsen Foundation, and it was a certain pot of money in there, and we could spend a certain amount. And that's how it, I believe it got started, but in recent years, we were just given money. So, and as far as FCSS, it's against their charter. You can't buy food, it has to be preventive services, yeah. Unless we requisition the county more, and then they can have some extra money, yeah.
kind of going down that road that you're talking about, I don't know if we have any colonies here that are government certified for that within Wheatland County. Because that'd kind of be nice to be able to buy product from there, certified, and
I'm not supporting any
just thinking. But it'd be a producer within the area, and you're giving that money within the, I know where these guys get this from, because I haul it for them, right? So it comes from Sobeys right now.
I think, I'm thinking the utility grade turkeys are about $1 a pound. And I don't think you'll find a colony in the county that'll sell it for double that amount.
Yeah,
I
because I
know
think,
we usually spend about $250.
yeah.
No. No, that's a different, we sponsor that food, that frozen Meals on Wheels. Yeah.
This is a once-a-year program
Yeah.
and it was, like Tom said, I did that for 5 or 6 years, and I didn't see any harm to it. I don't have an issue with it. It's not our biggest cost.
It is probably the equivalent. What the ask is probably the equivalent of us supplying a utility turkey to all these people, right? So, I think they're getting better in the fact that they're acknowledging that the county of Wheatland is actually giving money and all that kind of stuff, so. Put my socialist hat on and I'll put the motion forward that we contribute $3,300 to the Christmas hamper.
If I can just add to that, I know that there have been some concerns raised in the past with how the presentation of this has been done, and that Wheatland hasn't always necessarily been included. So I'd perhaps just put a caveat that a letter maybe goes with the funds requesting that consultation be done with Wheatland staff so that there's appropriate recognition, and I think it was contact information as well for intake, because I believe WFCSS may facilitate intake. So if we can just have administration check with WFCSS administration about that to ensure that it's done appropriately and in a timely manner, because I believe last year it was done too late for it to be fixed. We have a motion on the floor. Is there further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Opposed?
This guy right here.
Can we send a letter to the town saying that we did this? Why don't you match us? Friendly competition? I don't know, something.
Bring it up at the CRISP meeting.
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, we can't do that. We can't do that. We can't do that. We gotta invite everybody else.
A crispy chicken meeting.
Do we have one more? Glenn, you said there was an in-camera session.
And before we go on camera, I talked to Reed Douglas, Molly over in Newell. They will be asking the rest of council, which Molly said it won't be a problem, for me to sit in on regionalization negotiations just as a spectator, just see if we can't learn anything there, so.
Thank you.
Interesting. Negotiations for regionalization. She's like, oh, that's such a good idea. I'm like,
Glenn, do you have an item to go in camera?
I think I'll defer it, and I'll just
Yeah,
have a talk with you before
but I'm
I
sitting
bring it up.
with
Okay.
them.
Okay, so if we could have a private talk,
Sure.
then I would be okay with that.
Okay,
Then we can adjourn.
okay.
No, I'll defer it that way.
Okay, we made it through 897 pages. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion that we never have an agenda this big again.
All in favor?
No meeting ever go past 3 o'clock.
He said he's going to defer
I'll
it.
just talk to Amber. It's maybe more specific to Amber than. Talk that way first.
All in favor?
Anybody?
Scott?
Adjourn.